Alright, time for another draftphysics.com, debatephysics.com, draftphysics.com, yeah, I think it said that. Video presentation. Sorry. Tired. Day just started. Anyway, I'm tired of it all. I'm just tired of people, really. Just, I don't like you much. Anyway, so yesterday's video was the simple idea that the balance, okay, proves the case. Right. That the MV squared stuff doesn't show up on the balance, showing that there's an equality between, let's say, a one mass moving twice the velocity and a four mass moving one velocity. It doesn't equal the same thing, not the same momentum. This measures momentum, doesn't measure kinetic energy. It doesn't consider it real. All right, and in my opinion, it's a decisive piece of evidence. I don't think I haven't seen any explanation, so they haven't provided any explanation for how it works, how you can have twice as much or 4 times as much or 16 times as much or all kinds of ways of much energy moving on this side of an oscillator, and, it still oscillates. Can't happen. All right, won't happen. It doesn't take 25 times the fuel to spin a motor 5 times as fast. It's just a fact. And it proves that kinetic energy, 1/2 mv squared, is a silly formula that never had any credibility and was always just a dogmatic assumption, a statement of truth, not a proven or deduced. You could say it's deduced a little bit in the sense that, yes, you could roll a ball twice as fast and it'll go 4 times as far. So, but that's because the friction's being controlled by gravity. And gravity does that weird thing where you have to lift something 4 times as high to go twice as fast. And so you could have the illusion, okay, that 4 times the height equals 4 times the amount of gravity. But the truth is, it's only in the gravity twice as long. So 4 times as high is only twice the time in the gravitational differential. The very fact that I have to even argue that gravity is a differential, and it's a differential of a constant rate. That is, it is just like paint spray. Okay? And it's about how long you're in the paint will decide how much paint you collect. I mean, they actually don't believe that's how gravity works. Apparently. Because obviously that analogy just destroys any notion that you could be in the gravity only twice as long and collect 4 times the energy. No, you can't. All right. This is a constant, consistent force. So I think another pretty good comparison can be made between the gravity argument, you could argue, or the real world physical objects moving versus electricity. Okay. Because in electricity, there's no evidence that we need any squared, right? There's no squared velocity in the equation. It's just the what you'd call the mass, which would be the amount, okay, of electrons, and the pressure of the electrons, the voltage, the velocity, you could argue. And it's pretty clear, the analogy between watts and joules. So, I mean, obviously 1 watt equals 1 joule in their mathematical formulation. So in a lot of ways, these two things are very much related. And I'd say that, yes, you're really just talking about a volume of electron motion, okay, in a wire. You're just saying you got a certain mass of electrons and they're going to move at a certain velocity, the pressure. Now, the velocity gets a little bit more complicated because it's not as simple as just measuring how fast an electron's moving. It's about how quickly the electron moves from one atom to another atom. And it's all some derivative of the speed of light, which I would argue that so is gravity. That once you're going really fast, right, you couldn't collect any energy from gravity because you're going as fast as the force pushing you, just like a stream has a limited amount of energy it can give you, and even wind, it's a limited amount of energy you can collect, based on the fact that there's a speed limit to the force pushing you, and it can't push you faster than it's going. It can't hit you if you're going faster than it is. It's a simple argument. And so the fact that, okay, they don't see any necessity to square the velocity to increase the joules of energy in electricity, sort of just, in my opinion, is again another demonstration that this is just a circumstantial mistake. I mean, a couple of silly experiments, gave some indication. They really had to contrive it. Okay, so they just stated that 4 pounds dropped 1 foot is the same energy as 1 pound dropped 4 feet. They never proved it with any kind of experiment. And then in the 1700s, they decided to try to find these experiments that would prove this. And so they ended up with denting clay with round objects, which is just a bad experiment. And it's just as bad as not understanding the idea of what happens when you roll something across a surface. The faster you roll it, the less contact pressure per square foot, per linear foot, it will have with the surface. The gravity gives it less weight over larger and larger areas. Places the weight over larger and larger areas. So, you can end up getting the same. In the case, it's Galileo's numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7. That for 3 parts of your journey, 3 units of distance, 3 feet, let's say, the ground collects as much energy from the object as it collects in the last 1 foot. And the same thing happens when you're free falling. You go through the gravity. As you gain acceleration, as you gain velocity, you go through the gravity faster and faster, so you travel a lot of distance to just get 1 unit of gravity. So the faster you're going, as you go towards a gravitational body, or as you're being pulled by it, pushed, technically, you're collecting less energy from it, because it's really just about how much time you spend getting the force, and obviously the faster you're going, the less time per linear foot you'll be collecting paint, okay, or photons or anything else. So this is just a simple argument. It's about, that's how energy is collected. So, there's not much. I shouldn't have to really explain how the parallels between electrons moving in a wire, being masses and velocities, and pretty much that's all there is in a wire is momentum, and there's no need for an MV squared formula or an amps times volts squared formula to correctly approximate how much energy something will have at the other end of that wire, how much you can make happen. So the two really should be consistent because they are convertible into each other. You can convert electricity into motion, and you can convert motion into electricity. So there should be a consistency. And I guess that's all I really want to argue in this video. And I could go back to the, ballistic pendulums. I could go back to, just your 5 mass, and you're going to add another 5 mass in some graceful manner, and so you end up with a 5 mass that was going, say, a 10 velocity, and you're going to end up with a 10 mass, okay, going a 5 velocity, and everything works perfect. It makes perfect sense. You conserve the momentum. You could do it the opposite way, blah blah blah. It makes perfect sense. Using a lever. But their theory says you lost 1/2 the energy somewhere, so you conserved nearly 100% of the momentum, the MV, but somehow you did a bunch of work on the environment and sent a bunch of energy off in directions that they never collect and never measure. They just claim it. So they claim half the energy dissipated into the environment, and yet you didn't use any momentum to dissipate all that energy. So you moved bowling pins. The bowling ball moved pins, but the bowling ball didn't slow down. The bowling ball didn't lose any energy. It's silly, frankly. It's just silly, stupid, ignorant, and it's kind of shameful that intelligent people will keep trying to feed this zombie formula. I mean, it's dead. Okay, it's not a real thing. It's not really even a Frankenstein. It's a puppet. Okay, it's a pretending to be physics, pretending to be a fact, pretending and all that, and it just doesn't fit. It doesn't work. It doesn't make sense, and it just breaks everything you touch it with. Everything you pollute and poison the rest of your physics with this fake notion of reality. You don't measure, say, the mass of an electron. You don't measure it correctly because you use this silly formula to deduce its mass, and the silly formula is going to give you the wrong answer. And so then physics will say something like, well, if you add up your electrons and protons, it doesn't add up to your weight. And, well, it's because you weighed the electrons and protons wrong. That's simple. So anyway, so enough of a video. There really aren't any counter arguments. The gimmicky little bullshit experiments where they pretend they're collecting energy when they're not even collecting it. And then the other experiments where they can't ever measure anything clinically and carefully, and so they just contrive a piece of theater and pretend it's reality. And no, it's just a play. It's just bullshit. It's props. It's smoke and mirrors. It's sloppy science. Ooh, that's a good name. Sloppy science. Yeah, maybe I'll just put that in the title. So, yes, it's... It really shouldn't be a big challenge to have this argument with rational people saying, yes, it does seem quite bizarre that they don't have any of this evidence. They don't have crash tests. They don't have anything to defend the theory. They really don't. They can't show you some pristine, perfect experiment showing 4 pounds dropped 1 foot doing the same amount of work as 1 pound dropped 4 feet. Or showing it taking 25 times the fuel to spin a motor 5 times as fast. Or showing a motor spinning or a wheel spinning 5 times as fast doing 25 times the work. Can't show you any of that. And yet they just arrogantly proclaim their God is God. And it's really just that bad. It's just arguing with religious fanatics. Not much point. So anyway, that's where we are. And so that's the video. Keep it short. Just say, yeah, there's no counter argument. So
really fascinating. In fact, the most fascinating thing I've ever heard.
Till the next time.